Welcome back to my channel, guys. So I haven't been doing a video for a very long time, but I was like, okay, 2025 has so many interesting transits and there are like major changes coming, so I really need to do a video, something that I wanted to do for a while, and we are talking about the major transits in 2025 and how they will affect us on a global level. Meaning that those things I am going to say in the video might not affect you on a personal level, but they will be very important for the global world, for the world as humans, as an earth, as like a collective, right? Because some of you were writing me and y'all are being so afraid that they are going to have a bad year in 2025 because of all those transits happening. But trust me on this one, even though the year 2025 might be very intense, even though there might be like so many things happening, it does not necessarily affect you on a personal level. It might be that the world is ending, okay? But still you will have a good year. Why is that? Because the global, the major, the outer planets are not always affecting us on an individual level. There's like astrology for us as humans, okay, as like your personal life, your personal marriage, your personal whatsoever. But there's also astrology as mundane astrology as for the world. And what I'm doing here, I'm kind of like focusing more on the world astrology. And this is interesting. This is also important for you. You need to listen to that, because astrology is not all about the ego. It's not all about the self. It's also about how we are being part of this global energy. Because when you think about yourself as a representation of all the signs of all the planets, and when you think the world as a representation of all the signs of all the planets, you are part of this, right? There's a reason why you are here. You cannot escape from what's happening in the world. So you should also like listen to what's happening in the world so that you can focus on yourself, about how you want to integrate yourself within this world order. I think we should just like start, because when we think back about 2023, I remember when I said, I think it was even in German, because back then I wasn't doing English content. So I remember when I said, when the nodes were changing into Aries and Libra, I said back then that we are heading, okay, because when you think of the North Node as the head, we are heading towards Aries. We are heading towards the sign of Aries. So we are heading towards everything that Aries represents. And Aries does represent war. Aries does represent violence. Aries does represent guns. Aries does represent conflict. So what I said back then, I said we are going to head towards a time where conflicts are going to be big, where weapons are going to be big theme again. And we've seen this, okay? We've seen this throughout the whole year, that the gun industry, okay, especially in Germany, is like really big right now because of what's happening in Palestine, right? So we are seeing that war, that violence, that aggression is going to be bigger, bigger and bigger, because what we are heading towards is in the sign of Aries. But now the nodes are changing, okay? So the nodes are our karmic destiny points, and they're actually very important when it comes to mundane astrology, change in energies here. Because when we think still about what energies we are experiencing right now, when we think about the planet Saturn is currently in the sign of Pisces. And I said back then, also in German, okay, I'm sorry guys, but I said back then in German that we will experience limitations when it comes to refugees, meaning that refugees will have a harder time in this society. And this is also something that became true, because when you think, for example, about Germany, like there are like lots of limitation concerning refugees. The right-wing parties are really winning, so everything that has to do with refuge, it's kind of like is harder, you know. It's like being limited. They are limited in their human rights somehow. And at the same time, we are having an increase of refugees. Okay, Saturn and Pisces can also cause that, because it forces you, Saturn, to force you, Pisces, to escape, to flee, to move to another country. Okay, so we have also an increase somehow in refugees. Okay, so this is another point. And this is also something that kind of like became true. And I don't want to say like, oh, this became true and this came true and this came true. I just want to kind of like let you know, guys, by saying that those things are becoming reality. They're manifesting like this and like that. This is important to know, because like this, we know that those things are kind of like also supposed to happen. This is maybe something which might be very controversial to say, but I do believe that those things are supposed to happen. Why are they supposed to happen? Because we are having Pluto in Aquarius right now. Pluto is transformation. Pluto is destroying structures. And Pluto was until last month, it was in the sign of Capricorn for 15 years. Capricorn rules over society, over structures. So the people on top, they wanted to maintain that power, okay, if I want to simplify that a bit. So they want to maintain power, and so they are kind of like causing destruction, Pluto, okay? And since Pluto was in Capricorn, Capricorn rules over all structures, Pluto at the same time showed us, or is showing us, that the system we are living in is not working for us. It's not working for the majority of people. The system was created to work and to benefit a very small percentage of people, okay? So this is what Pluto and Capricorn exposed to us. It was literally exposing to us. Pluto in Aquarius is going to give power back to the people, because Aquarius is the society. Aquarius is all the people we are kind of like interacting with. Aquarius is also the individuality. Okay, so it means on the one hand that you as a person, you can hold power within a collective. You as an individual can hold power within a group, within a network. It means also that the power will be distributed somehow. It will not stay at the elite anymore. It will be coming, or it will give, or it will be managed through society in general. But the problem here is Pluto rules over extremes. Pluto rules over being extremely on the right, extremely on the left. There's no middle ground. There's no neutrality about what Pluto is. So Pluto will divide society. Okay? We will not experience, for example, people who are like in the middle ground, who say, okay, this is like neither good or bad. This is like, I'm kind of like neutral about that. We will experience like extremes. So we will have like people fighting for something and then people being their opponents or something like this, okay? And Pluto can also bring the revolution. It can definitely bring the revolution. Last time Pluto was in the sign of Aquarius was during the French Revolution. Also interesting factor. So that's kind of like good. But one thing, and I said this in my other video about Pluto, one thing about Pluto, Pluto is causing pain. And Pluto will not bring you transformation. And everyone who has Scorpio placements, and everyone who has 8th house placements, and who has strong Pluto squares whatsoever knows that. Pluto does not bring transformation without pain. Pluto causes pain in order to transform. So we will as a society will not be able to experience a different system. We will not be able to experience the abolishment of the police, the abolishment of society whatsoever. We will not experience that until we experience severe pain. And so Pluto is asking us, what price are you willing to pay in order for revolution, in order for transformation? This is like the main question here. And we'll have around about 20 years to kind of like materialize that, actually, okay? So I talk in another video about that, so you can watch that. So I don't want to talk too much about Pluto and Aquarius, but still this is like very important, okay? One thing, we have the chance that the society will get the power. However, we will need to know how we are using that power. All right, so that's one point. That's Pluto and Aquarius. So what does that mean? The nodes are changing, meaning that the life purpose, the destiny is changing. There will be decrease, okay, because the south node will be the sign of Virgo, the north node is the sign of Pisces. There will be decrease in order and structure and organization, and there will be chaos. Pisces is chaos. Pisces is delusion. Pisces is a realm which is not material. Pisces is a realm which is spiritual, okay? So there will be some decrease in the structures we are currently having, and there will be increase of chaos. Okay, one thing, remember that. The good side, it means we might be like more empathetic with each other. It might be like we are kind of like realizing that we need, that the material world is not what is holding us together, but it's like an ideology or like community or spirituality, or people are more believing in change, okay? It can be also that people right now are not believing in change, they're only seeing this violence because this is what we are heading towards. But next year people might be like becoming even more spiritual and kind of like starting to believe in a bigger power and starting to believe in magic, and magic kind of like just might happen because Pisces is also magic. So we are hoping for some magic to happen. This is also chaos, and Pisces is also refugees. So increase of refugees, increase of everything that has to do with the oceans, actually. Like the oceans and oil can be a big thing next year in maybe even in February, maybe, I don't know, like oil, the topic of oil might be like a really big thing next year, and oceans in general, but there might be like an increase in that as well. And as I said, like there might be a decrease in structure. So what I want to say with that is basically that next year, and not only next year, but like 2025 and 2026 especially, those might be years we are experiencing a new world order. There are going to be new states which are holding more power. Okay, so when you think about like, you know, the power struggles between the West and the East, those things are going to be even more prominent, and there might be like even a switch, where there might be like new states holding so much more power than we were expecting. Okay, there's going to be like some sort of a new world order in the next years. I'm actually very sure of that. So considering that one, we will start talking about Saturn in the sign of Aries. I think this is one of the most important transits. Why? Because Saturn, as you might know, we're just like going through the zodiacal cycle every 30 years. If you were born between 1996 and 1999, you are probably going to experience your Saturn return next year. Saturn on a like global level is going to start a new cycle. And Saturn is the structures we are living in. Saturn is the society we are living in. Saturn rules over the systems that are created by us, for us somehow, you know? So Saturn in the sign of Aries is going to be in a very bad position because Saturn is in fall in the sign of Aries. Every planet has a sign in which it feels very well, and every planet has a sign in which it does not feel well. This is called dignity, okay, essential dignities. So Saturn has a low dignity in the sign of Aries. And what people usually who have Saturn in Aries are doing, or how they are living their life, they are not able to listen to the system. They are not able to adapt themselves to structures. They need their own structures. This is like a sign or a placement which can cause self-justice. They are taking justice in their own hands. What's interesting here, the last time Saturn was in the sign of Aries was during the Kosovo War. And so what's interesting here is, if you don't know much about the Kosovo War, one thing you need to know is that the Kosovo War was kind of like ended when the NATO intervened. And this NATO intervention was highly, until today, it's like extremely criticized because the NATO back then, they did not have actually the votes to actually intervene. They just didn't. Even though they're like by law and by actual institutions, they were actually not allowed to intervene. And so like later in 1999, the war in Kosovo ended. And this is what I'm talking about here. You know, an institution, a power, a state who is intervening into something without having the actual rights to intervene. Okay, this doesn't always have to be bad, because like for Albanians in Kosovo, it was good that the NATO intervened. Not saying that the NATO is good, but like in the sense of like for some people, you know, it might be a good thing that those things are happening. It might be this time that it's not the NATO, but someone else. It might be like society themselves. People will not expect or will not wait for institutions to help them. They will intervene by themselves. They are not waiting anymore for any institution, for the system, for the structure to hold them. Okay, they're going to hold themselves somehow. It might be a thing, and it might be actually in the concept of war somehow. Okay, all right. Next thing here is going to be very interesting. Saturn in Aries is also the aftermath of war. And this is something I'm kind of like hoping for. I don't want to make like too big predictions, but I think it might symbolize that something is ending when it comes to war, because Saturn is kind of like, Saturn limits things, Saturn diminishes things. The last time Saturn was in Aries, we did have less wars, for example, in Europe. We did have, I think, more wars in Africa at that time, but in the continent of Europe, there were like less wars. So it might be that we will see some sort of like decrease in violence, but this will come with some sort of confusion. It will come with chaos. It's not necessarily good, but because Saturn will also conjunct Neptune. And Neptune, as I said, is like, you know, it's like Pisces energy. It's going to cause chaos and confusion. And there might be like that the war or that conflicts are not managed on a material level, but they're managed on a very like invisible level. There might be like technological wars. It might be that there might be something like a virus, a disease coming, something which is not visible, which is going to be connected to the aftermath of war. So in the places where there's war right now, there might be like an increase of disease, something like this, okay? And there might be like a lot of chaos. This is like connections will be for a longer time, okay? It will be like exact actually in 2026. However, we are going to feel the energies also in 2025. Because it was like a bit confusing for me as well, because I'm not 100% sure what it's going to bring. I hope it's going to bring the aftermath of war. I'm not 100% sure about that. But it's going to be definitely some sort of like limitations. It might be even hopefully that people will be held accountable for what happened during war, and that people will have to face some institutions, okay? Because Saturn and Aries can also represent one single person. Okay, so there might be some accountability, but at the same time we have Neptune here. So even though someone is being held accountable, this person might have the chance to flee, or this person will escape, or this person will maybe even like, you know, die, and then he will never be held accountable. Those are the energies that can happen somehow. Like something which just has to do with the aftermath, which has to do maybe with being responsible for something. But at the same time, it's getting lost, okay? There's like delusion, there's confusion, there's chaos, you don't know what to do, you don't know how to build up the system anymore. And this is like the most, I feel like the biggest thing people might be afraid of, because we will live in a state which is like very confusing. Like next year is going to be about confusion. It's going to be like, okay, so we know the system is not working, but what's going to work now, okay? Because a lot of things like this might really confuse us, and when we are confused, we are afraid. And when we are afraid, what's going to happen? We are hoping for someone to lead us. Jupiter is going to enter the sign of Cancer, and Jupiter is exalted in the sign of Cancer. So Jupiter feels very well in the sign of Cancer, okay? It's like it has a very high dignity. So Jupiter in Cancer might cause people to be more in solidarity, okay? Jupiter in Cancer can cause high morals. However, Jupiter in Cancer can also cause nationalism, okay? So it might be that because we are in the state of confusion, people are kind of like waiting for someone to lead them, and then they're going to be driven towards more nationalism, because they're like, okay, you know, I'm afraid, this is like everything is happening, I need to have my community. And when you have your own community, it's good, but the moment you are excluding other people and you're getting on this kind of nationalism thingy, it's not that good, you know? So yeah, so I think, as I said, like this is all kind of like leading back to the fact that society is going to be divided somehow, because they are confused and they are afraid and they have worries. And I'm not fully blaming every single person, okay? Because this is something that I feel like we need also to understand somehow, that people are going to be confused and they might act out of fear, out of chaos, out of insecurities, out of worries. Uranus is going to enter the sign of Gemini. And Gemini is technology, it's transportation, and Uranus is also technology and surprises. So there might be like new technology coming in, new forms of transportation. As I said, there might be like even new ways to lead war, because Uranus and Pluto are going to be in a trine, okay? Information will be like even wider spread, like spread it very fast, okay? New ways of communicating. And so the thing here is that, and I don't want you guys to be afraid, but the thing here is that the last time Uranus was in the sign of Gemini was during the nuclear bombing in World War II. And when you compare World War II to World War I, one big distinguishment about that is that in World War II, you had very high technology. So better technology to kind of like do war somehow, okay? Because, you know, Uranus was in Gemini, high technology, nuclear bombing. This time, Uranus will be also in the sign of Gemini. Will there be another nuclear bombing? Not necessarily. I'm not trying to make you guys afraid. The thing that's going to happen is nuclear bombing is going to be more in the news. Like it might be that we will hear more about that. It's like already kind of a discussion, but it will be like a bigger discussion next year. Okay. Because, you know, Uranus is like only re-entering a sign every 80 years. So this is like, I'm pretty sure like in the next years, this kind of like thing is going to be bigger. Okay guys, so those are like the main analysis for next year. I'm not doing this to kind of like create fear mongering. I want to kind of like now use the time to take the fear, which this video might have caused, away from you. Because there are like also good things to that. The system we are living in, okay, never really worked for us. It always worked for a very small percentage, which benefited from the system, okay? And so in order to transform the system, we need to experience first a catastrophe. Why? Because when we think about what represents transformation, what represents revolution, it's Uranus, okay, it's kind of like Uranus revolution, like surprisingly a revolution, and it's also Pluto. Pluto is transformation, and Pluto in Aquarius is the revolution. So only if we're experiencing Pluto the way Pluto wants to be perceived, the way Pluto wants to be experienced, we will be able to dismantle the system we are currently living in. And Pluto is pain. Pluto is catastrophe. Pluto is the worst thing that can happen to you. If you think about the worst thing that ever happened to you, okay, if you think about the worst thing, this was the Plutonian energy. What does transformation mean? When you think about like when are the times we were transforming ourselves the most, it was always the times when we were feeling the pain the most. It's always the times when we were feeling at our lowest, where we're able to actually transform. Things are the worst before they are ending. All right, so when we think about everything, it's getting worse, everything, all the crises are kind of like reaching a zenith. It's actually, and this might be again very controversial, it's actually a good sign, because it means that the system we are living in is it's not going to exist anymore very soon. Okay, so this is actually a chance for us to create a new world. It will not happen today, it will not happen tomorrow, but it will happen. I'm 100%, I believe that it will happen. And it might happen during the time where Pluto is in Aquarius. As I said, it's going to be until 2044. It might take a very long time. That being said, I hope you remember how powerful you are, and I hope you remember how powerful networking is. And yeah, I just hope you will have an amazing 2025 and see this as a sign of transformation, which can be like very powerful, very nice. Yeah. So I hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope that you keep remembering how powerful you are, how powerful knowledge is, how powerful interactions with other people are. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope that you just remember how powerful you are, how powerful your knowledge is, how powerful your interactions with other people are, how powerful organizing and networking is, how powerful social media is. And I don't want you to be afraid. I just want you to know that things are going to change, and that's okay. It has to change, okay? And yeah, so thank you so much for listening. I'm very excited actually for 2025. I think some things are going to change, and this is like hopefully the change we need. Okay, bye bye.